ladies, gentlemen, they, thems, welcome and thank you for joining us on the Private Property Podcast today. My name is Sibs Matiela and I am your host. This is your one-stop portal to all things property, all of your property-related queries and inquiries and questions and interests. We are here to answer them because at privateproperty.co.za, we love to connect you to the heart of property. Today we have a very, very special guest, someone who's an heir to a local real estate dynasty. She's not only a sought-after motivational speaker, a broadcaster, a life strategist, a strategy advisor. She also recently won Standard Bank's prestigious Top Women in Property Award in 2020. It is the CEO and shareholder of Sotheby's International Realty South Africa. I'm here with Yael Geffen. Hi.
Hi, Sibs.
Welcome.
Are you? Yes, I'm good, and you?
Great.
It's interesting to hear heir to the property dynasty. It sounds a lot more glamorous than it is, but my late brother and I, we had a joke because he actually was an executive director at the time, and when he introduced himself, he'd say, "Hi, I'm Yael Geffen, I'm the heir apparent." And they'd say, who are you? And I said, "I'm Yael Geffen, the heir not so apparent."
Now look.
Apparently I've become apparent.
Oh, and you know what? Thank you for actually bringing that up, because you know how like musicians will say, very popular musician, and you'll be like, "Tell me about your life story. How did you start out in the industry?"
Yes.
And they'll say something along the lines of, "I've been singing since I was 3 months old, and I learned to play the drums when I was still in the womb."
Totally.
I imagine property is something that's always been in your blood. You've been doing this since forever.
Well, I mean, like you say, the programming starts very young, and I cannot remember a dinner conversation with my parents where they weren't talking about their business, which is quite a sad thing in a way, but in other ways it taught me about business and property and selling and beautiful homes from a very young age. So yeah, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse.
Listen, you're not only the youngest CEO of all of the property brands in South Africa, you're also the only female leader in the top 3 property companies in the country. How?
Well, actually,
I mean, I know obviously you're great, but
no. Here's the thing. Traditionally, if you think about it, in the 50s, it was female-led. It was my gran, Yael Geffen, who owned Aida Real Estate, and then she
they had a red
franchised.
logo. I
Yes, with
remember.
yes. And then Pam Golding. So Pam Golding actually, when I met her, lovely woman, she actually told me that I met her, I think in 2006 actually. She actually took my hand and she said, "You know, I got into property because I was listening to your granny at a talk. And I signed up the next day." And
Wow.
I mean, look at what she created, you know, Pam Golding Properties. So then there was definitely more female leadership, which is begs me to question, why has it changed, you know?
Why do you think that is?
I think women lately, it is interesting because at that time it was quite a domain for women to be pioneering. And also at that time, you know, it was a great career for women to engage in because it would allow them to have their home life, look after kids, as well as have the flexible time to go and view properties and show properties and that. I don't think there's a reason that women shouldn't be in charge anymore. I just think, you know, we need to put our hands up more and have a bigger seat at the table. And that's why I'm inspired to authentically show leadership, that women can be in leadership positions. They were originally in property, and there's Barbara Corcoran in the States. So, I mean, this is a place we're definitely destined to lead.
What would you say gets you out of bed in the morning?
My son and my dog.
Okay. Do they jump on you? Is that it?
No. I'm literally like a sardine on the side of the bed, and then these 2 little young things have the whole bed to themselves. So I'm not essentially this morning rearing to go person, but I do like to set an intention to start the day. So today's intention was to have wisdom and grace. Hopefully I'll pull that off with this interview. You'll tell me afterwards.
You're killing the wisdom part, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I need to work on grace. Okay, so that's what gets me out of the bed, and also using the platform of leadership to inspire and use it to motivate others.
I imagine that you make a lot of, as a CEO, you make a lot of really hard and tough decisions.
Yep.
That another person would be completely so overwhelmed and even nauseated by. I suppose my question is, for people who are faced along their journey of buying property and sort of enhancing their property portfolios, and now have to make these really, big decisions that they'd rather shy away from. I'm one of those people. I really suck at making big decisions. What advice would you give them?
So I think time is a currency, and especially in property and in the property business, if you're seeing a house and you know that it's in a very enviable area or viable area, and it's a good market and it's a buyer's market, you know that you have to put in that offer, and then you've got to make sure everything else is in check financially in your life. Or if you're a seller and you need to sell, for me, I like to, so I say laughter is medicine, because there's that expression, laughter is so close to tears. I laugh a lot when I'm stressed. I find it a really great outlet. And also, I like to do something called PDA. It's something I came up with, my own microscript.
Okay.
So if I'm making a very big decision, I like to pause and breathe. And then the D, that's what the P stands for. The D stands for detach, distance. So often we need to get out of the environment in which is causing the stress. So I like to go for a walk or a quick run with a dog in nature, and that allows you to detach. And then A is acknowledge or accept, but to bring this in without ego, because ego is the one that gets in the way. So also to remember that we this tiny little part of this huge big thing, and it's not the end of the world. There's no such things as mistakes. It's just growing and evolving. So that's what I like to do. And that allows me to make decisions quite quickly and swiftly and with confidence.
And this is why she's a sought-after motivational speaker and life strategy advisor. Thank you.
Well,
thank you so much. Tell them how to book you at the end of this episode. Listen, so we're talking about turning a negative into a positive, and I'm sure you've seen this a lot during the course of your career. Someone buys a dud. Let's call a spade a spade. They've got this dud. They don't know what to do with it, how to turn it around, how to make it work for them. They've got a snag list from Cape to Cairo, don't know what to do. How can they turn this around for themselves?
Well, firstly, I just want to let them know that they're not alone. And
I thought you were going to say there are no duds.
No, well, there we go. Everything's relative, but one man's junk is another man's trade. One man's dud is another man's
mansion.
Yeah. Exactly. But they're not alone in the sense that they're the only ones that have ever been in that position. Even myself, I've let something slip, when I bought properties, because it's quite a big transaction and a big task, and it's hard to remember everything that you need to do. And that's why it's important. I'm not just punting estate agents here, but it's important to get a reputable partner to journey with you in this process. But if you are in that position where you realize, oh boy, I didn't get an inspector, I didn't get an engineer, I didn't get this to check everything, and it happens to all of us, then I would say, okay, you've got to ask yourself, is this an investment property, or is it a property for you to live in and enjoy? Because if it's an investment property and you're looking to turn it around for a rental or to sell it for a higher price in a few years, then I would say we'll start with the areas that matter, and don't overcapitalize. So the areas that matter are the kitchen, the kitchen, the bathrooms. There we go. You know your list. You know your shtick. So those, definitely start with those, and don't overcapitalize in the finishings and all of that. Obviously, plumbing, all the main structural stuff needs to be good. Otherwise you're going to be called, and plumbing's not working again.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that situation. If you're doing it to live and enjoy, then, you know, there's that expression, the heart of a home, for a reason. When you're at home, you want to feel loved and comfortable, and you want it to be beautiful because it has such an effect on your psyche.
And safe.
Yes, and obviously safe. Safety first, of course. But depending on what you need done, then you focus on what's the biggest priority. For example, if security is not secure enough, you focus on that first. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Security is a prime hierarchy right there. And then the areas that you'll spend the most time in, and that will give you the greatest satisfaction. One person might love a pool and just look so forward to it. Another person might see it as a headache, a nightmare, and a maintenance problem, you know. So it depends on you. But again, it's whether it's investment or it's to love and live in.
Do you have like a biggest loser moment where you just were like, why did I do this? Or like, because you're saying everyone has done it before, like where you're not alone, everyone is in this. What was your moment where you were like, oh man?
No, I couldn't believe that I didn't check one of the bounds. So I bought an investment property and I couldn't believe that I didn't check one of the boundary walls. It's part of a complex, a townhouse complex. And I mean, I'm normally so thorough, you know, and I have to be. And there was this big rock covering something, and I mean, the minute you see a rock or something covering, you think, oh dear. So I peered behind the rock, and oh my gosh, the whole wall is crashing on the one side because there's this tree on the other side in my neighbor's in the unit next door's property. And had I seen that, I could have addressed it beforehand. But, you know, then it's like, do you argue with the body corporate? Is it a body corporate? Is it me? Is it that? And, you know, it's something which I wish I had seen. So we're all guilty, all of us.
What do you do if you've invested in a certain property or community? And then, because everyone says when you buy property, you know, it's an asset that appreciates over the years. Sometimes where you've bought a place, suddenly there are things that bring the value of the property down, the value of the neighborhood down. Maybe there's an increase in crime, maybe there's littering everywhere, and then suddenly, you know, vandals or vandalism or vagrants or whatever, you know, happens to sort of devalue that property. What would you say a person can do? What are your legal rights? What action can you take, I suppose, to ensure that that stops happening and you can retain the value of that property?
It's a really relevant question, Sibs, because where we face right now is the highest rate of unemployment in South Africa. Our economy is unstable. So this is a real question, and it's certainly something that isn't just going away. So if you are faced in a scenario like that, the legality isn't on your side in the sense that there's the Prevention of Illegal Eviction Act. So you're going to have to come up with more creative scenarios and community-based scenarios. So I believe if you're living in South Africa, there's a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of challenges in a lot of countries in the world. But one has to be an active citizen here. And what I mean by that is, you know, we've seen with COVID how people came together and were stronger together and all of that. And people in neighborhoods came together, and perhaps you start your own neighborhood watch, WhatsApp groups, perhaps you install some cameras in the areas, and you take it into your private domain to keep that neighborhood safe. You also appeal to the municipality, and you do all that as well. But you really come together, and also you up security, you know, whether it's in your own home, but speak with an expert and find out, because often, you know, you'll go to a company and they'll say, oh, yeah, you have to do an electric fence everywhere, or you have to put alarm systems everywhere. That's really not often the case. It's normally just the areas that are exposed or the weak spots. So come together as a community, do what you can, apply to the municipalities where you can, but be an active citizen. Be an active citizen, and hopefully, if you have a strong power voice in the community, the municipality will take notice, and you can affect a change.
I want to know from your point of view. You've obviously probably, I'm assuming, but obviously.
Yeah, you say obviously a lot. I feel like I'm under pressure.
No, it's like, obviously, because of how you've grown up and being this heir apparent now to this Realty dynasty, you know, it's like we're on Dallas or something.
I wish.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of the biggest, sort of grandest, most
I've
amazing
been very
homes
lucky.
and properties
Yeah.
and, you know, all of this luxury and opulence.
Yes, yeah.
But we also live in a very unequal society. So in the same breath, I'm sure you've mentioned the unemployment rate, you've mentioned a lot of things that happened during COVID, and just the unaffordability that a lot of South Africans face for basic goods. If we talk about that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a lot of people aren't surviving or managing.
Right.
A lot of people aren't housed. They don't have addresses, they don't have roofs over their heads, and even those roofs that they do have are very volatile, and come a storm, come a wind, suddenly they're out on the street. From what you've seen in your experience being in this industry and in the family that you've grown up in and being a South African citizen, what would you say can be done to make sure that every South African has a roof over their head?
So it's not as though the private sector isn't interested. The private sector is definitely interested, but there has been a decline because of the economy and the state of decline of the economy. And with the government sector, they're also very overloaded. I think the main problem that we're dealing with is informal sales. Because an informal sale is basically when a property changes hands, but the title doesn't. So there's a transaction, there's a monetary transaction. If we could get that going and make that legal, and I can tell you the private sector would come to task and help the government with whatever assistance they can, because that would allow us to stimulate the resales economy and get people into housing a lot quicker. Would also help the backlogs with the municipalities. There's a lot of legal nightmares that take place because of these informal sales. So I feel that that's where the private sector and the public sector, the government sector, can come together and get these transactions moving, and it will stimulate not only the economy, housing, but get people in and have the experience for low-income housing and get real estate professionals involved even from that level. And then we could solve a lot of problems in our country that way.
Yael, this is completely unrelated.
Why do I always get that in interviews at the end?
No, I don't know. I think it's your energy. So you have such a high vibrational energy. How do you manage that?
I certainly don't wake up like this. I'm not really a morning person, but I do like to, my late grandfather, Monty Geffen, who was also in business with my father, Lou, and my mother, Sandy Geffen. So it's really, it's been the whole family, if you think about it. But he had this beautiful saying. He had two, actually. And one of them that comes to mind is, always put a rose between your teeth and shout Olay. And I feel like that with life. We just don't know what's coming. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs, tragedies, losses, gains, and there's the ebbs and flows. So I like to think of putting a rose between my teeth and shouting Olay for however long I'm here, and to be able to do it with others and share in that experience with others. So his other saying was, Yael, there's nothing serious in life unless you put an umbrella up your bum and you can't get it out. And you've got to keep your perspective, especially in high pressure positions. Being a CEO, being in charge of, or being a leader of many people, whether it's agents, helping customers, just keep perspective. Don't let your ego get too ahead of yourself, and have fun while you're doing it. So hopefully that helps. But should this not work out for me, I can explore the high vibrational energy thing that you're mentioning, and then maybe that would work.
I think it definitely would. Vibrations all around. Ladies, gentlemen, they, thems, Yael Geffen, who is the CEO of and shareholder of Sotheby's International Realty South Africa, joining us today on the Private Property Podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and to another strong woman, and welcome to the team. And I hope to be seeing more of you.
We will definitely be back to talk about more vibrations and property. Listen, that was today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow on the Private Property Podcast. Good night.